Hello and welcome one and all to my YouTube channel. I'm Rowan and today I'm going to be going through all the books that I read in July. Now I know this video is a tad bit late, but I am determined to get reading recaps out for every month of this year, even if they're a little bit late. So in July I ended up reading 10 books, those being Run Away With Me, Midnight Game, Fangirl, Nobody in Particular, Catch or Death, The City of Bones, The Shade Between the Shadows, Teacher of the Year, and Signed, Sealed and Dead.
I also read The Song of Achilles, but I forgot to mention that here.
So yeah, without further ado, let's get on with the video. So, the first book that I read was Run Away With Me by J.L Simmonds. Now, I'm going to be honest, I was expecting something a little bit different when I picked up this book. A bit different from some of the other thrillers that I've read. However, I did love it. I loved the lesbian, romance and just how all the characters interacted. I felt the two main characters were really, really well developed, and I loved how, their characters developed throughout the book. However, I did feel like some of the side characters could have, been developed a bit more, could have, seen them a little bit more. However, I did love all the interactions, all the characters we got. The main plot of Jessie or Mouse running away because her stepfather, I think it was her stepfather. Yeah, her stepfather died in a mysterious way. I felt that to be a bit boring and in the end very anticlimactic. I wish that had been built up more. And then there's this storyline with a guy called Chris, and I wish that had been expanded on more and was a bigger part of the plot, because it was such a big thing for a couple of chapters and then it wrapped up so quickly, and I wish we got more from it. And it almost felt like she had more, but she wrapped it up a lot quicker than she meant to, so it just felt like a waste of space. And I really wish that had been expanded on more, and I feel like that would have made the overall plot so much better. However, saying that, overall I absolutely loved this book and I ended up giving it 5 stars. So the second book that I read was by a favourite author of mine, The Midnight Game. Now, I've loved Cynthia Murphy since I read Win, Lose, Die, Kill. It's the only book I've read of hers, but I've reread that book so many times and I loved it. And I finally got a second book, which was this one. Now, I loved it. I loved the concept and I thought it was so well executed. I don't want to spoil too much, but this book was so good. I loved the thriller aspect and the whole creepypasta sort of theme of the book. And I love how the supernatural in the end was like, is it real, is it not? And it sort of left that mystery, and it really built up the suspense even more, because throughout the book you're thinking, oh, it's not real, and then there is a part where you go, wait, is it? And I thought that was really interesting. The only thing I have to say about this book is I loved the character of Tori at first. She was so strong and independent, and then after the big twist she completely changed, and it was like she was weak and just wanted the support of a man, and it was just, I wish she'd stayed that strong and independent character, and I felt that would have been a much better story to have. But overall, I did really, really love this book and ended up giving it 5 stars. The third book I read was Fangirl by Rowell. Rowell? Yeah. I like this book. Kath is very relatable as a fangirl myself. However, she did feel a bit too, she had too much anxiety, and she kept second guessing herself and second guessing things and getting overly anxious and in her head to the point where it got annoying. I understand anxiety, having an anxious character, but it was too much, and it almost got in the way of plot development and character development in a way that I didn't enjoy. However, saying that, I did love her writing style and how I actually love Levi, I think the love interest names is. and I thought he was just so nice, and I liked how he tried to stay with her even through Kath's sort of worrying brain. I would be really interested to read more from this author, and I have actually got another one of her books recently, which is the Simon Snow, the Carry On books that she's got, the first one. I've got that one, and it'll be interesting to see how that translates, because Simon Snow and Carry On is the fanfiction that Kath is writing in this book, and so I'd be interested to see how it comes across as, you know, a novel. But yeah, so in the end, I ended up giving it 4 stars. Okay, so I actually missed a book and also messed up the order a little bit. So this month is not in order, but the book that I missed was Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I absolutely loved this book. It was amazing. The ending made me cry. However, saying that, the middle did feel like it dragged on when they were in the war, which I guess is kind of good symbolism, because it made, you know, it showed how long the war actually was, because it goes on for several years. However, I did feel like parts of it could have been cut a little bit, because I didn't particularly enjoy that bit. However, there are parts of it that I think are just not needed. Saying that, I did absolutely love the characters. I also loved how we got to know Achilles, because even though you don't get a POV chapter from it or anything, you do really get to know his like point of view through Patroclus. I can't say his name. Patroclus. I might be saying that wrong. But you really do get to know him through his eyes. You really do get to know him and get to love the two, and their relationship is so sweet. And yeah, the ending made me sob. Absolutely sob. But yeah, it ended up being obviously a 5-star read. Okay, so I think from now on it is roughly in order. So yes, the next book I'm going to talk about is Nobody in Particular by Sophie Gonzales. I love this book. I absolutely love this book. To be fair, I love any sort of royal romances set in the modern day. Things like Red, White and Royal Blue, and then Nobody in Particular. It was so good. I'm glad we got point of view chapters from both characters, because I feel like some of the Princess Rose, if you didn't get her point of view, you might see her as, you might not get her character. She's very bitchy, but when you get in her head, you really, really understand why, and I think that's so important. I absolutely loved their romance and how cute they are. There's so many cute points in this book, and I just loved it. Also, this cover, beautiful. I also really like the twist at the end. It's hinted throughout the book, and as a reader, you start sort of noticing bits and start piecing it together. However, you can understand why the characters may not have pieced everything together, because they don't have all the information, or they're too close to their people, and so they don't think that they could do that. But it made the ending so shocking and just so good, and I loved seeing their reactions to whatever happens. And I thought it was just so interesting, and yeah, I absolutely love this book, and I might have to give some of her other works a good go. This book ended up being a 5-star book. The next book I read was another Ravena Guron book, which is Catch Your Breath. It had the same problem as Melissa Murder, which it had too many chapters for how long it was, which just made it feel like it was dragging on, because you were reading, oh, I'm on chapter 30, and you're like not even halfway through the book, which I didn't personally like. However, I loved the suspense, the twists, the turns, most of the characters. I loved it. The only character I have to say that I didn't particularly like was Devi. She came across as she didn't come across very nice. I didn't like being in her head. However, the other two characters that we got POV chapters from, loved them. It was so good. I actually kind of wish we got a point of view chapter from Lottie, because I feel like it would have been so interesting, especially at the end when all the revelations are out. It would have been so interesting to see how she like process it, how she thinks, and her perspective on the entire ordeal. I think it would have been really interesting, or possibly even when the whole thing takes place, without trying to spoil too much. It would have been interesting because you don't actually get to see the murder happen. So it would have been interesting to have a chapter, point of view chapter from that time, even if it was a flashback at the end or something. I feel like that would have been really interesting to see. However, saying that, I did absolutely love this book. But yeah, I ended up giving it 4 stars. So the next book that I read was The Mortal Instruments, City of Bones. This is the first book in that series. Now, I started this probably 2 years ago, and I stopped mainly because Jace, that's the character, because Jace got so annoying and he was starting to get on my nerves. So I put it down, and I've been meaning to pick it up for a while, and I just haven't. So I finally did it, and I read it, and I finished it, and it was amazing, and I loved it. I've since read the second one and I'm obsessed. I need to know more about the entire series, and so yeah, I will be purchasing the other books in her whole Shadowhunters world probably at a future date. But yeah, I did fairly like this one. I like the ending. I can't remember too much about the beginning because I read it 2 years ago, but overall I did really like it. I liked Clare. But yeah, because obviously I took that 2-year break, I did only give this 3 stars. However, I am very excited for the rest of the series. I read was The Shade Between Shadows by E.C. Hibbs. I really liked this book. It was great. I love how it's set in the Victorian England, which just made it feel so fresh from a lot of other fantasy books which are set in like the medieval times, in like that sort of era. And I felt like it was very different. So the main character in this book is mute. She doesn't talk, and so it's so interesting to see what she communicates and how others interpret her communications to what she's actually thinking, and seeing that difference and seeing just how she navigates the world was so interesting. And I also really liked the world that they made, and I honestly cannot wait to read the other ones. I don't know how many more of these books there are. I will have to find out. But I am really interested to see where this story takes us. Overall, I ended up giving this book 4 stars. So the next book I read, I actually bought on a whim, and I ended up loving it. It's Teacher of the Year by M.A. Wardell. I love this book. It was so good. It had the cutesy romance scenes, and the spice, the smut, was used so well. It used to progress the story, to, you know, get the characters closer to each other, and it wasn't overused. And I thought it was really well done. I also really loved the daughter in this book. There's a little picture of her there. I loved Iola and how she was her own character. She wasn't just used for plot. She wasn't just there. She was actually a proper character, like fully fleshed out, and I thought that was so good. It also did the single dad romance really well, because one thing I don't like about single dad romances is when they demonize the ex-wife, because it annoys me so much. But with this, she wasn't. She was the supportive ex-wife who actually helped them get back together in the end, and I just love that, because I hate it when the woman gets demonized for being and standing in the way of the 2 gay love interests. But that wasn't what this was, and I loved it. I really appreciated it. This book, the characters and their development and how they worked through things together, as well as, you know, not necessarily and even if the 2 like love interests aren't talking it through with each other, they have other people, like friends and colleagues, that they talk to about it, which I love. They're not bottling up. I love how they gave the mum a little bit of a redemption arc. It's not perfectly immediate, but it shows how the main character grows. So can his relationships with the people around him. Overall, I gave this book 5 stars. So the final book I read was Signed, Sealed, Dead by Cynthia Murphy. I love this book. It was so good. I loved the idea of a serial killer coming back and wreaking havoc. I thought that was really interesting. I liked all the characters. They felt individual. And while they had their slight stereotypes, it was well done, and that wasn't all they were. I loved the suspense and the mystery and trying to work out and piece things together from the information you get. And I thought it was really well done and well crafted. The plot twist at the end, I'm not gonna lie, didn't see it coming. Overall, I ended up giving it 5 stars. Yeah, those were the 10 books I read in July. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm sorry that it's been so late getting out. But yeah, do you agree with all the ratings I did? If not, or if so, let me know down below. I would love to hear from you. Also, if you've got any book recommendations, I'm always willing to hear from anyone. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please consider giving it a like, a comment, and possibly even subscribing. But until next time, bye!